You don't choose this life. At least, that's what you tell yourself. Because in 1940, in a Germany reshaped by fear and silence, loyalty isn't optional, it's expected. And today, your story begins at the very bottom of one of history's most dangerous professions. Not as a soldier, not as a general, but as a spy. You are nobody. A shopkeeper, a clerk, a student sitting in a lecture hall with ink-stained fingers and a head full of ordinary thoughts. Invisible. And that's exactly why they chose you. At first, the work feels small, almost harmless. You're not stealing classified documents or cracking military codes, you're just noticing things. Who speaks too loudly about politics over dinner? Who keeps a foreign radio hidden under their floorboards? Who hesitates, just for a half second too long, when the Führer's name comes up in conversation? You write it down, pass it along. A quiet knock at a door, a sealed envelope slipped through a mail slot. No questions asked. At night, you convince yourself it's patriotism, that you're protecting something worth protecting. But then one day, someone disappears. A neighbor, a classmate, someone whose name you recognize. And that's when it hits you, like cold water poured over everything you thought you believed. You're not observing history, you're shaping it. They trust you more now. You're no longer just watching from the edges. You're moving information across the city. Your job on paper is simple. Deliver messages, stay calm, don't draw attention. But in wartime, nothing is ever as simple as it appears on paper. The envelope you carry on any given afternoon could change the outcome of a battle hundreds of miles away. It could expose an entire resistance network. It could get people killed or save them. You memorize routes, you change them daily. You learn to walk at a normal pace even when your pulse is hammering in your ears. Because the moment you look like you're running from something, you become interesting. And interesting gets you caught. And if you're caught, understand this clearly. You are not a soldier. You don't get a uniform, a rank, or the protection of any international convention. You get silence. You get a basement room and a chair under a single light. And if you talk, every person you've ever known becomes a name on a list. So you don't get caught. You simply cannot afford to. Then the day comes when they move you somewhere far from home. They give you a new name, a new history, a cover story memorized down to the name of your childhood dog. You're placed inside occupied territory, perhaps France, perhaps Poland, perhaps somewhere even deeper inside enemy lines. Your accent has been rehearsed for months. Your backstory is airtight. You become someone else entirely. And you're good at it. You make friends, real ones, or at least people who believe they are your real friends. You laugh with them at cafe tables. You share meals. You earn their trust slowly, carefully, the way you might tend to something fragile. And then, because that is the job, you betray it. Every conversation becomes a source of intelligence. Every relationship becomes a tool. But the longer you stay, the more something shifts inside you. Because these people stop being targets. They become real. They have families, dreams, fears that keep them awake at night. And sitting across from them one evening, watching them speak freely and laugh without suspicion, you realize something that shakes you to your core. You no longer know who you are. Time passes, the stakes escalate. You're no longer just gathering information. Now you destroy things. Railways, supply depots, communication lines that stretch across the occupied countryside. You move under darkness, placing charges with steady hands and an unsteady mind. Timing is everything. A miscalculation means the mission fails. A delay means soldiers die on a front line you'll never see. You don't witness the results directly, but you hear about them. A train carrying munitions derailed. A supply convoy lost. Lives ended in fire and smoke somewhere in the middle of Europe. For the first time, the weight of what you're doing becomes something physical, something you carry in your chest wherever you go. This isn't quiet work anymore. This is war, and you are standing directly in the center of it. Then they pull you inward, closer to the machinery of power. You work in rooms where decisions happen and consequences radiate outward like shock waves. You're not the one conducting interrogations, but you're the one who makes them possible. You analyze intercepted transmissions. You decode patterns in scrambled messages. You identify suspects based on nothing more than behavioral inconsistencies and a gut instinct sharpened by years of observation. You build cases against people you've never met, and once you hand over a name, that's the end of it. No appeals, no second look, just consequences. You process it all as data at first, reports, files, numbers, codes. But then one afternoon, you open a folder and there's a photograph inside. A face, a family standing outside a house on what looks like a summer afternoon. And in that moment, it stops being data entirely. These are people, and they're gone because of you. The work evolves again, and now it becomes something that would have seemed impossible to the shopkeeper or the student you once pretended to be. You're sent into enemy intelligence itself. They believe you're one of them. You feed them information, some real, some carefully constructed fiction designed to mislead, to redirect, to waste their resources and their time. You walk a razor's edge every single day, because if either side loses confidence in you, it ends immediately and badly. You learn to lie without the slightest hesitation, to regulate your breathing, your expression, the micro movements of your face under pressure. You become two people simultaneously, and you play both roles with terrifying fluency. But the longer you hold this position, the more a question begins forming somewhere beneath all the performance. Which side are you actually on? Not politically, not strategically, but at the deepest level, the one that matters when you're alone in a dark room with your thoughts. One day, you're forced to choose, not between countries or ideologies, between survival and something you might still call truth. Now you give the orders. You manage entire networks of operatives, each one carrying their own mission, their own risks, their own fragile lives inside a system you designed. You decide who goes where. You decide who is expendable and who is worth protecting. And sometimes, you send someone on a mission knowing they won't come back, because the information they'll gather or the cover they'll provide matters more, strategically, than the life of one individual. You tell yourself it's necessity. That war demands this kind of cold arithmetic. But somewhere, underneath that justification, you know the truth. This stopped being war a long time ago. It became calculation, and you are very, very good at calculating. From there, you move into something even larger. You're no longer reacting to the enemy. You're constructing their reality. Mass disinformation campaigns, fabricated intelligence that sends entire armies in the wrong direction, psychological operations designed to make the other side doubt their own commanders. You make people see exactly what you want them to see and believe exactly what serves your purpose. Battles are decided before the first shot is fired. Entire campaigns hinge on information you manufactured in a quiet office hundreds of miles from any front line. No one knows your name. You exist only in the shadows. But your influence moves across continents like weather, and then everything breaks at once. The Reich is collapsing. The carefully constructed world you operated inside for years is crumbling faster than anyone predicted. And now, the skills that once kept you safe are working against you. Your false identities start to unravel under scrutiny. The networks you managed go dark one by one. The allies who needed you last month have vanished into new loyalties or no loyalty at all. You are alone. You burn documents in a metal bin at 3 a.m. You erase names, destroy photographs, eliminate every thread that could lead back to who you actually are. Because the people looking for you now are not interested in justice. They're interested in closure, the violent kind. The war ends. You survive. But survival, you learn, carries its own particular weight. You live under a new name in a city that doesn't know your history. And you try, for a while, to simply move forward. But the past doesn't stay where you bury it. In quiet moments, you remember every face, every mission, every choice made in a dark corridor or a candlelit room in occupied territory. The questions come slowly at first, then all at once. Were you loyal, or were you simply afraid? Did you serve something worth serving, or did you lose yourself so completely in the performance that there was nothing left underneath? Because being a spy was never just about secrets. It was always about identity. And somewhere between the first sealed envelope and the last burning document, yours disappeared entirely. This was your life. not as a decorated soldier or a celebrated hero, but as something far more invisible and far more consequential. A shadow moving through one of history's darkest chapters. A life constructed entirely from lies, maintained through discipline, and defined by choices made in silence. The war ended. The borders shifted. The world rebuilt itself and moved on. But the shadows from a life like this, they don't end with the armistice. They stay with you every single day for the rest of your life.